Hello there, people. Welcome to another Chit Chats with Git Cats, number 55 with Rich Renken from Tyler Guitars. Before I check my front door, I just want to give a quick shout out to some sponsors that I've got on board. I've got ET Guitars, who have provided some great cleaning products that I'm going to give away. The folks at Summer Cable, you would not believe the size of the box they sent me, full of cables, t-shirts, backpacks, etc. And also Chicken Picks, my choice of pick. These guys here, not sure if that's going to get in focus. If it sees my eyes, it's probably not. There it is. These things are amazing. That pick there is about a year old and they do not wear out. I've gotten used to using a funny shape. They've got all kinds of shapes and sizes. I'm going to be giving that stuff away through my Facebook. What do they call those things? Not a page, but a group, a public group. Come and join Chit Chats with Git Cats. And I actually need some ideas from some of you folks who are a bit more savvy with how I can give all this stuff away to you and try and promote myself. Get the word out about some of the guests that I've had on. But in the meantime, there is a ding dong and there is somebody at my front door. Who should it be but Mr. Rich Renken? Hey, Rich. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
I thought you were going to pull a Swiftie on me and pretend the audio was dropped out. Yeah. I'm glad you didn't. Stranger things have happened. Rich,
Yeah.
You're in sunny California, I believe.
Oh, man, it's burning hot California right now.
Is it really?
It was 108 today.
I don't know what that means in sensical talk.
Celsius?
Yeah.
Burning hot.
Okay.
Burning hot Celsius, yeah.
Okay. Man, when are you guys going to get the measurement thing down? Like,
I know, right?
Yeah.
What's with inches and feet and, you know?
Yeah. I just got a comment on one of my Facebook demos of the Friedman small box and I made fun of such and such pounds for those of you who speak gibberish, and someone said, man, I'm American, I totally get that, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But Rich, you are the general manager of James Tyler Guitars, and I believe you're going to give us a bit of a look around the factory. But firstly, I just want to find out a bit about you. So I'm going to ask the question that I ask everybody, and that is, what started the love affair with the guitar for you?
So this is actually kind of a fun question because I've done quite a few interviews and stuff, but it's never started with what was the spark, you know? And I just so happened, and we'll see it when we do a little shop tour. My uncle, Bob Barr, who is still with us. I lost my dad last year, but my uncle is still there. He was a musician, and I grew up in Minnesota and Iowa, and my dad's family was from Iowa, and he would come back from San Jose, California, and he would bring his 66 Duo Sonic and his deluxe amp. And I was 8 years old, and let me back up a little bit. The love of music, I remember even as a young kid, I would like pull myself up on as close as I could get to the one speaker in my mom's 67 Chevelle and just pull my face into it and just try and absorb and listen, you know, to the sounds that were coming out of the thing. You know, I remember I was super little. You didn't have to wear seatbelts then, so I could, you know, we'd be driving at 55 miles an hour and I'd have my, you know, face on the dash. And but then she also played music. My grandfather was in it was in vaudeville a little bit, and his uncles were in vaudeville, and so I grew up in a musical family, and there was always acoustic guitar sitting around, and my mom would sing to me. So but when my uncle came with that Duo Sonic and showed me how to play, you're not going to believe it, no, a song I don't think anybody's ever heard of. It's called Smoke on the Water. I learned how to play it on the high E string only. And I just remember just sitting there for hours, just dun, 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 dun. And I was always fascinated with them after that. And I actually wanted to be a drummer originally, believe it or not. But I played a little piano, played a little guitar, and I didn't get to play drums. Ended up playing trumpet, but I learned a little bit of drums in junior high. And then high school hit, and a song called by the Brothers Johnson called "Stomp" came on the radio and made me want to be a bass player because it had that percussive thing.
Uh-huh.
And it had strings, so I became a bass player, and that's my main instrument.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So that was we got we got lots of gigs. I had to say no to gigs, unlike guitar players. A lot of times they're like,
But it is true. A good
gig?
bass player, bass player, will get a lot of gigs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the spark.
That was the spark, and we'll start from there
if you want it.
Yeah. So, what did you start playing in bands at a young age?
No. So I'll give you the summation. So all of that happened. I wanted to be a drummer because of We're an American Band, and then Brothers Johnson Stomp, Lewis Johnson. I didn't even know who he was at the time. I just felt that thing with the bass. So I bought a bass because I would mess around with the bass in the band room because there was one in the band room for the jazz band. So I started learning just a couple of bass lines, like Another One Bites the Dust, Owner of a Lonely Heart, stuff like that. You're starting to see how old I am. So I bought a bass after high school before college. And when I went to college after basic training, I ended up in a band because I owned a bass. And that band was these 5 guys, and we all played around Iowa and South Dakota and a little bit in Minnesota. And we decided to, just like everybody in the 80s, let's go to California where all the music is, and let's go, make it big. And so we all moved here and in 86. But the guitar player moved here in 85. And that guitar player was a guy named Brian Karlstrom, who ended up becoming a guy named Dave Jordan's engineer. And he did Alice in Chains, Dirt, Offspring, Social Distortion, all this stuff, And but we moved out here. I came out to go to Dick Grove School of Music, but I literally got in that band because I owned a bass, and then I learned to play bass in that band. And I came out here, and I was going to Dick Grove School of Music, and there used to be an advertisement in a magazine called BAM, which was Bay Area Music, but it was down here as well. And it would say James Tyler Guitar Shop, the place for bass, because he had a repair shop, but then he also had a retail side that was all about bass players, which was different than any other stores like Guitar, and a lot of stores would have both, but he specialized just in high-end bass stuff like Ken Smith and Tobias and Status and Groove Tubes bass preamps and stuff like that. So I thought, wow, place for bass, I need to go down there. And so I went down and I met him, and he was showing me around his shop, and we were going down a line of basses, and we get to a session player's bass named Neil Steubenhaus, and it was a Tyler. And I looked at it and I said, wow, who makes that bass? That headstock is horrible. So if anybody out there ever wants to bag on the Tyler headstock, I've been there. So, obviously I fell in love with it later, but I stuck my foot right in my mouth because he's like, yeah, that's me. And so he worked on my basses, and I ended up buying a Kubicki Factor from him and another bass, and then I ended up in a couple of bands. And I went into a shop one day to pick up something, and he was sitting there. And I was like, what's up? And he's like, I'm looking for somebody. I need somebody to work in the shop, and I just can't find anybody. I'm like, hey, I'll work for you. And so I worked for him for 7 years, and moved on, needed more money like anybody, and it's like I went from building high-end beautiful electrics to setting up Fernandez guitars.
Cool.
But we had the Sustainer pickup. So I met a ton of people who are still friends, like Matt Scannell, who's also a Tyler guy, but I met him because of Fernandez from Vertical Horizon, and fabulous guitar player. And Adrian Ballou, I still chat with him once in a while. And we had Robert Fripp, and the Edge, had a couple guitars that he actually sent us pictures that we couldn't use, but it would show up because he would play them live.
Yep.
And I was there for 10 years, and I ended up becoming the controller. So I was the money guy. Then they couldn't afford me anymore. They let me go. So I started engineering, collecting unemployment, looking for another gig, but I started making records. And I hired a guy to play keyboards on a record, and he, had him come and play. I had this church gig that was really killer with a bunch of killer cats, like the drummer that played with Eric Johnson and Billy White and Ian Moore, and the keyboard player is now the musical director on American Idol, and it'd just be these fabulous players. And this keyboard player said, "Hey, do you need a job?" And I'm like, "Nah, not really," because I played a jazz bass at that point through a really nice compressor, an actual rack compressor on a pedal board, tube screamer, Sans amp into a 73 SVT at a church gig. So he's like, "Do you need a job?" And they were working on the low down bass amps at line 6. And I'm like, "I don't even know what a product manager is." So we start talking, and he says, "Dude, I think you'd be perfect for the gig for the product side, but do you have any financial experience?" And I'm like, "Well, I was the controller at Fernandez, because you got to do Excel sheets and all this." So I went there and I did with Daryl Smith is the guy who hired me there, along with Marcus Ryle, and I had to interview with the whole team. But I did the low down bass amps, and then I did Spider 3 with all the artist presets, and then Spider Valve with Bogner. He's a longtime friend, and then I did M13, M9, M5. I started M5. I didn't finish it, but I drew the original M5 on my whiteboard.
Oh, cool.
And but I had to move on to Variax. And when I came to doing the Variax, the Bogner thing worked so well. We started talking internally, like, "Hey, let's partner with somebody and let them take care of the guitar side. Let's just concentrate on what we do well, which is the guts."
Yep.
And some of the older Variaxes were cool, like the what was it, the 700 that looked more like a Paul Reed Smith type
Yep.
of thing, and guys who loved them were rabid fans, but it just couldn't, without pickups, it was like couldn't break through that, and I so when we pitched the working with a guitar builder, before it was Jim, when it was just we should work with a guy as a builder, one of my first requirements was it needs to have pickups, because when that guts and technology goes away, now you have firewood. But with pickups, you can pull the guts out and you still have a great guitar.
Yep.
So, and then a couple guys were, "Yeah, but with no pickups, it kind of tells you something, right?" And I said, "Nah, it's kind of like a hot chick with no eyebrows." And you go to the store on Sunday morning, and they just got up and they need milk, and they haven't painted on their eyebrows, the girls that do the paint.
It's a funny look.
And you're
there's just something missing. I can't put my finger on it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, yeah. So I went looking, and of course talked to Jim, and I talked to Tom Anderson, and I talked to Sadowski and a couple other, because these guys are all friends of mine,
Yeah.
and I ultimately went with Tyler just because of his worldwide kind of like, and when I sent the list to my UK side of Line 6, they just wrote back immediately. They were like, "You're talking to Tyler?" And I'm like, "I used to work for Tyler. Don't you remember that?" And in Europe, they were just like, "Oh my God, yeah." So I knew Jim well enough to know that he was going to push us to do the right thing. And it was supposed to be a couple of year project that ended up going 5 years. And he went through brain surgery in the middle of it, and he had a tumor. That's a known thing that people know. And but we did the Tyler Variax, and it did really well. And now here we are 11 years later, and it's still selling. And a technology product is only supposed to sell for like 2 or 3 or 4 years before it gets a refresh. I hope they refresh it, with Yamaha and everything.
Yeah.
But so I left on purpose in 2012 to Mix Records, and I moved in with that guy I was just talking about, Brian Karlstrom, and I moved in with him, and it was going great. And then he had a heart attack and passed away, sadly. And I moved my studio to my house, and I was looking for a part-time gig. And there might be a guy watching right now named Adrian that I worked with at Line 6, who I worked with as well at Gibson. So this thing fell in my lap. I was looking for a part-time gig because of Obamacare and all that stuff. And this full-time gig popped into my lap, and I went to the interview, in jeans and a t-shirt and told them I didn't even know KRK was still around, and they looked at me like, "What, are you crazy? You don't know we're number one?" And I'm like, "No, because I don't see him in studios anymore." And they looked at me like, "Why is he saying this in an interview?" And I just said, "Hey, I'm your target customer. I make records. I have IMDb credits. I do post work. I do bands. I went looking. I went on a monitor hunt, and all my friends like Joe Barresi and Dave Jordan and all these different. None of them told me to check out KRK. And I said, "Is that my problem or your problem?" And they were like, "Oh." And I said, "Well,
Yeah.
hire me and it'll become my problem." So I did the V series there, and everything I learned doing that, I baked into the new rocket that has actual Kevlar, and it's got the room correction software and all this stuff. So and now Gibson moved it to Nashville. So I worked at Gibson during the whole bankruptcy, which, even though I was on the pro audio side, obviously I had many friends on the guitar side before I even worked for KRK. So I went through that whole thing. If there's any questions about that, I can't. There's certain things I can't say, but man, that was a nutty time. And but once they got out of the bankruptcy and they got the guitar side squared away, they moved KRK to Nashville. And I have 5 grandkids here, so I said, you know what, I'm staying here. And I started looking at other gigs, and Jim and I even went out to dinner at one point, and I joked about, I should come work for you. And he's like, yeah. And it always felt like, yeah, we've been there. Let's just stay friends. And, and also I was ramping up my mixing again. I actually got a gig doing Disney and Marvel special features. I had to go through police background checks. This is right before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And I ramped up a couple other things. A buddy was going to help me get in the union and the whole thing. And then the pandemic hits, and I ended up getting super busy mixing a church and mixing some other stuff. And then Jim's had to let go of some of his crew because they were scared. We didn't know what was going on. And he said, "Hey, can you just come by and just help me ship a few guitars, and then I'm going to just shut it down for now until I know but just help me clean up a little bit." And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I came in and I was helping him, and I said, "What do you want to do, Jim?" Because everybody knows, he wants to retire. And he took his final orders a couple years ago. And I said, "Do you want it to be final?" And he said, "Look, I don't want to do it." And I said, "Yeah, but here's the thing: is if James Tyler leaves James Tyler Guitars, is it still James Tyler Guitars?" Most people would say no, and for the most part, they're right. And I said, "But Jim, here's the thing: it was you and me in your garage when you decided to go full-time building. So I'm going to show you guys what we used to call the green book with the first 10 studio elites that were ever built and the names that are attached to them, which is a super fun thing."
Cool.
But I was there from the beginning, and now I've made a name for myself sort of in the industry. So it's like me coming back, you're retiring, but he's still here. He's going to do the set neck on his own. He's just going to build the first 10 himself.
Yep.
As I'm keeping the shop running, and I built up a team after COVID started letting up. We have 8,000 square feet, so we were able to stay open, and we're also not in Los Angeles City, so we weren't under the same restrictions. So we were super careful and all that stuff, and we kept going. And of course, as everybody knows, I'm sure that's listening, if you're at all watching what happened with instruments, everybody knows it blew up this last year.
Mm.
So we got super busy. I hired some guys from Exotic. I hired another guy that used to paint for another company in Orange County, and built up this team, and it's been going super great. We upped production. It's been a blast. So, and then I met you, and here we are.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the that was kind of long, but that's about as compressed as I can get it.
Awesome. Well, I first came across you online when you were product manager for the M series at Line 6. And I know the whole philosophy behind that was bonehead simple. And I got one when they first came out. And there was something that was missing from it that I thought should have been on there. Was it MIDI sync or something? I forget at the time, but I made a suggestion on the forum and gave my reasons why. And lo and behold, next firmware update, you guys put it in there. So it's really good to see that, you listen, because there's some companies where people are screaming for certain features and they're just like, yeah, whatever, does this.
It was funny. A few years ago, Line 6 announced that they were doing this like beta. I forget what they called it. where you had to sign special NDAs and stuff so you could share your ideas, because you got to be really careful with that stuff. But I kind of spearheaded that with M13. What happened was, and I'm sure you remember this, because it wasn't a product that was going to cannibalize one of our other products because it was so different, it wasn't replacing anything. We announced it at Frankfurt and then didn't start delivering until the following NAMM. So I had 9 months to work with guys and talk about what they wanted, and of course, like you alluded to, Bonehead Simple, I wanted to make an effects. And Daryl, anytime I say I mean me and Daryl Smith.
Okay.
If you guys don't know who he is, check him out. He left Line 6 as well and has his own amazing company that works with TED Talks and the whole thing. So you should interview him sometime. Man, that guy worked for
mate, you've
so
rattled off
companies.
A few names that I'm going to pick your brains about how I can get in touch with
sure.
after the show. Yeah.
So we were like, we want to make it a multi-effects pedal for the guy who doesn't want multi-effects. Mm-hmm. And you just reach down and it's, I have an M9 on my pedal board now, and I love the thing, so. Mate, and listening to customers, that's the point though. What you were saying is, I even started a forum before we even were launching into doing Variacs with Tyler and everything. Yep. I launched a forum saying, Rich Renken, product manager for future of Variacs here. Let's talk. And it went to like 100,000 views in a couple weeks. And the company was like, oh my God. And then people were putting ideas in there and they're like, you can't do that because you got to be really careful, all the legal stuff. Yep. So we made a way for people to go in legally and come in so we could all talk and, and nail what ultimately became the Tyler Variacs,
Awesome. So. Awesome. Were you involved with the Helix product development at all? Small?
A little bit.
So that's just the complete opposite. For me, I got the Helix when it first came out, and I've got an HX Effects just sitting down there, and there's a few things, the whole, touch sensitive, capacitive things. I'll accidentally touch something and then turn a knob and I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? I really like the Bonehead Simple of the M series.
Yeah.
If only I could get the same engine in that format.
Yeah.
Oh, that would just be the ultimate.
Yep. No, when I say a little bit is even before I came to Line 6, they used to talk about the ultimate pod type thing. Way before Fractal and Kemper came on the scene, they were talking about making the ultimate pod, and they code named it the road cars, really fast road cars. I'm mind cramping.
I'd help you out, but as we worked out before, I'm not really into the cars.
Yeah. Formula One. So, and I used that when I was at KRK. I used that. We were getting ready to do the high end, and I hope they still do it, the high end KRKs. And I talked to, when you're talking to somebody that doesn't understand monitors, why do you need a $3,000 monitor? I said, there's guys that will buy those, but everything you learn doing that trickles down. And that was the idea. I didn't even know that until a couple of years ago when I was talking to a former, employee, friend from Line 6, and they said, well, that's why we called it Formula One. I'm like, no way. Oh, that's genius. But so we all, product development, we all had our own products, but we would meet once a week with our head of product development, a guy named Steve DeFuria, and we'd have this massive, just like, throw out, don't put parameters on it yet. Let's just talk free, because you got to do parameters like costs and who's going to buy it and who's the customer. But let's just get crazy. And we actually we want this, and with juice, and we did all this stuff, and we came up with, and we started pitching basically a $1,500 pod. And, internally it was just like, oh my gosh, whoa, are you guys crazy? And we're like, look, we won't sell a lot, but we were losing the mind share game to some of the other companies that were doing really inventive stuff. And I'm friends with many of them, like Cliff at Fractal. I love that guy. It was just like, hey, we're selling the crap. I mean, they wish that they were selling this many of everything, but we got to do that thing that says we get that we care about taking you guys as far as you can go. And then that would sell more, HD 500s. Well, obviously when Helix came out, it just went, blew up for him. And I was gone by then. It wasn't even called Helix when I left. I wanted to call Spider Valve Helix. but
I,
they said no, and that it was taken by some other company. So I still don't even know how they ended up getting to call it Helix. Dang it.
yeah, right. Well, that whole trickle
Anyway,
down thing that you're talking about, I know there's the Pod Go that's out there now, and it's got
yeah.
the engine of the Helix and everything. And I'm looking around for a solution at the moment. I'm sort of weighing up all the different things that are out there.
Hmm.
If only that Pod Go had a stereo out for the amp output, because I run stereo cabs, so I got two Marshall boxes
Hmm.
sitting right there when I'm not for loudness, just get that spread in stereo. If only
Yeah.
it had that, I'd be going for the Pod Go as opposed to a Helix. But it's got
Yeah.
all that technology trickling down, like you say, that's great.
Yeah.
That's how it all
Yeah.
works, eh?
Yeah. So it was good. I had a blast. I was there 7 years, and it was just an amazing time. Um, and I had a blast at KRK. I've been really lucky. I tell people all the time. I look back and I'm like, I could have never charted this path at all.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's a job. At the end of the day, I love being here, and we're gonna look at the shop and stuff. But it's a job. But the fun thing is the in between times. Instead of talking to bankers about investments or something, you're talking to guys about Big Rec or King's X or whoever.
Yep.
So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah,
So Rich, you've been threatening to give us a bit of a tour around the factory. Should we
yeah,
get that out of the way, mate, before you have any
yeah.
issues with batteries or anything like that?
I'm rocking the battery, so
You're rocking the batteries. That's
um,
good. That's good.
yeah. I made sure everything was charged up. The one thing I'm gonna have to do, so this is gonna get weird. I'm gonna be all over the place as I try
That's
to
okay. You
figure
got to
out.
flip the camera.
I think, I think so. I just got to see. Can I do that within this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, right there. Wait, let's see. What does this do? Oh, that switches us. All right. Let's
Within
see.
your, it should be. Let me think how you would do that.
Oh, here we go.
You got it.
Front facing, and I'm gonna go to facing back. What is that? Did that do anything? No. No.
No.
Let's see. Facing front. All right. Oh, you know what? Maybe I have to. Maybe. Okay.
We should have thought about this.
Did that do anything? Oh, there we go. Look at that.
Oh, look at that.
Woo!
Okay. Can I get you to flip the camera
We're
sideways
rocking.
again?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Perfect.
So now I will flip you and me so I can see what the heck I'm showing you guys. There we go. Now, is there a way to go full screen on that?
Nice. I'm just going to get me out of the corner there so that we can see a bit more.
Okay.
There we go. Yep. Nice.
Well, just because I'm in my office, so this is mission control.
Yep.
Hopefully there's nothing that anybody can zoom in on. Of course, I got my KRKs. Woohoo!
Mm-hmm.
So this, everybody, is every guitar from basically 2000. So this is when he started doing what he calls build sheets, and it has every year. I have 2000, 2020, and 2021 by my desk.
Cool.
But this is everybody's actual build sheet. So if I pull out one of these, when people request, hey, can you tell me about my guitar? It'll be like, here's your guitar. Oh, that's funny. Rock City. There's a serial number, and this is, that's actually, most of these are Jim's writing, because he was the sales guy back then.
Yep.
So the reason I showed you these is because we had a thing in the shop called the Green Book, which I actually ended up calling this the Green Book. Because it was a green notebook.
Awesome.
There's my writing where I was trying to figure out how to spell apologize. I'm not sure why. This is a super fun little tidbit. This is a guy named Doug Nossinger, who sadly is no longer with us. He passed away last year, but he was a young kid that just called me up when it was me and Jim in his garage, and he's like, man, I'm nobody, but I'm going to MI and I'm going to be somebody, and if you can help me out. And we built him a parts guitar or whatever. So I miss that guy. So anyway, here's the first page of Studio Elites, and it's the first 10 guitars and first 10 basses. So you'll notice Tyler.
Yep.
Guy named Todd Sharp, Rick Azum. I wonder who that is. Robin Ford.
Wow.
Tyler. Kevin Dukes. Bob Bradshaw, Steve Lukather, Landau, and a guy named Larry Giannichini. He is no longer with us. Amazing, amazing player. And some guy named Masteller. Actually, I'm just kidding. That's Kurt Masteller. That's my guitar player from the band I moved out here with.
Wow.
We built him a guitar.
Yep.
And there's my bass. And of course, you got Steubenhaus, Alec Milstein. I actually have that one for sale. Kevin Dukes wanted one. John Pierce. He's actually using his Tyler 5-string with Toto right now, which is cool.
Oh, cool.
So this is the Green Book, and it's like, all the serial numbers and of all the years,
That's awesome.
So this is how we used to keep track. So we didn't have build sheets, I don't know what we did with them. We had something, obviously, we were building off of, but anyway, so that's a fun thing there. Here's me when my hair was full.
Don't talk to me about hair, man. I used to have the best long hair ever, and as I get older, it's like, is it time to shave it off, or I look stupid without hair?
So as promised, here's the 66 Duosonic.
Wow.
They're not really worth much, but it's and my uncle had taken it down. How I ended up with it, he had taken it down because he was a auto body guy, and he was going to repaint it. And so he had stripped it down and he had sanded the body crazy, but the neck pocket was left alone. So the color was there. So I had a buddy of mine who I've been friends with for like 35 years. He's one of my best friends, actual best friend. And his name's Dan Strain. You guys would know him as Danocaster.
Uh-huh.
But that's a guy you should interview, but I don't know if he would. I don't think he would do it. He'd be like, screw that. I'm not talking to people. I love that.
There's other people listening? I didn't know that. I freak out around crowds.
Yeah. So he did just the perfect, it's his relic thing that he does. And it's just perfect. And all I'm doing is, it's got a notch out of it, but I'm just going to put it back together to hang it on my wall. Cause this is the guitar that I learned Smoke on the Water on,
wow.
When I was a little youngster.
Yeah.
So there's my Variax.
Cool.
So there's that. So let's walk through the shop and just I'm not going to go crazy. There's a couple of shop tours online that you can get, but maybe we'll see something we haven't seen in one of those other ones. Maybe. I don't know. First off, it's Tyler. So we have big swamp coolers, not little ones.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm actually going to shut them off.
So what do they do?
Just keeps the shop cool, so it's less blazing hot. So one of my jobs is finding wood and getting it in here. Sometimes we buy lumber when it's not cut up and ready to go. It's called lumber, and then sometimes we buy blanks. From the usual suspects. As I've said many other times, if anybody out there has any contacts in the wood industry, let me know. These Bridgeports we had at Sepulveda, this address is in San Fernando. So before that, when I worked for Jim, we were on Sepulveda, where Schechter used to be, when it was Dave Schechter, way back in the day when Tom Anderson and Pat Wilkins and guys like that worked for him. So here's our CNC, standard fare.
Nice.
Next, coming out. Anybody out there that remembers Slaughter will enjoy this next one. That was a 80s metal band.
Uh-huh.
Jim used to work on. He just left, actually. He's been in here working on fixing our fixtures. So he used to work on Jakey Lee. I worked on Jakey Lee's guitar at one point, and Vivian Campbell, and he used to work on like Mick Sueda from Bullet Boys. But Dana Strum used to be with some artist named Spanos, but then obviously he was in Slaughter after that. So this is actually Jim's bench, that he's worked at for quite a while. That's a killer deluxe reverb that every guitar gets tested through. That's a killer vacuum. No, that's a joke.
The tone of that sucks.
So, we got the laser. Yeah, we got the laser machine.
And the laser machine's for.
We cut splines for our necks. It's like the piece that tucks down over the truss rod. We make
Yep.
truss rods the traditional way,
Mhm.
single truss rods. And we also cut out like our pickup bobbins and stuff, and a few other things. And yeah, this is a guitar owned by a guy named Tommy Walker. He's a big worship leader cat. That
Look at
Jim
that. Look at
did a
that.
yeah, it's pretty great.
Man, I forget how
Nice
beautiful
piece of
the
wood.
guitars are until I see them. Wow.
Yeah, and this one's is there even a serial number? Wow, we got to get a serial number on this. This is it's got a nice bird's eye neck on it. But this is quite old. This guy makes records. He's an amazing guitar player. But it's church, so it's got the acoustic-y saddles and a stereo jack. And I hipped him to the HD 500 10 years ago, and he uses that to split his signal and get a nice acoustic and electric going at the same time. So that's that. We're back where we started, but let's see. Let me show you two more things, and I'll show you some finished guitars that just got put together, so they're not fully assembled, but it's fun. So here's a bunch of necks, waiting to get decaled. I think tomorrow is decal day.
Cool. So you have
And
specific days where
yeah,
you concentrate on different processes in the factory?
yeah, yeah. It's definitely a system, and once in a while a guitar will fall behind, but we just let it fall behind and we catch it up, and eventually it ships. So here we are, like sanding a schmear. So, and I think that it's called copper patina, I believe.
Wow.
So this is in the sanding. It's like all the sanding and stuff, and there's a burning water. But and then this is our spray booth. Jim realized, look, once you pay for the fan and everything, let's just get the carport one that you can actually drive a car into, because now the guys can just go in, shut the door, and you're not going in and out of your spray booth. You're just in there mixing paint and making it happen.
Cool.
But this is fun. We recycle because we care about environmental things too. So we recycle our acetone in a still, basically, just
Oh,
like you make
nice.
moonshine. Yeah. So it's less anything we can do to not have stuff go into a landfill. Jim's always like hot on that. So let's see, what do we have over here? This was a guitar that's waiting to go. That's a nice spalted top.
Nice.
Came out pretty great.
Yeah.
Typical
I was going to ask you
classic.
about some of the finishes that we've seen there. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, for sure. I got a fun story about. And by the way, guys, anything that I say is just me riffing off of my recollections, because sometimes I remember stuff differently than Jim does. So don't take anything I say as gospel. But yeah, we wind our own pickups.
Yeah, I was just about to ask if they pick up winders. So you guys make all your own pickups then, huh?
Yep, we make all those, and Jim's got ideas if we get a chance to do it. And then here's some single coils getting made. One of our best employees, very important person on the team, is Jim's daughter, Sarah, who, some people tuning in might have talked to her because she used to run the office, but she very much likes working on guitars more than office stuff. And she does all our bodies, winds all the single coils, makes all the pickguards, and wires all the pickguards.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty awesome employee. So here's a fun. Let me lay it down. This is called Alien Guano. I'm gonna guess that probably most people know. So this is like an Alien Guano. It's a special one for a guy with that's called an Explogo.
Cool.
And I've never asked Jim, but my guess is that came from there was a guitar that Mike Landau had that's everybody knows it as Coma, that went through many different iterations, and one of them was it had this fender neck that Jim redid, and I don't think there wasn't a decal or something, and so Jim was going to put on a decal, and then as a joke he slapped on a whole bunch of them, and thought Mike would just laugh and then he'd take them off. But Mike was like, I love that. So there's if you could do a Google search, you can find that crazy headstock with all the decals. That's called a white schmear. This is pretty great.
Now, so the schmear and the burning water that you've shown us.
Yeah.
How do you guys do that? Is that a trade secret?
It's a top secret.
It is
not really.
No.
It's a lot of paint, and then it gets sanded flat. You put it on a certain way and sand it flat, and then you get the patterns. How it started was, I was, when we were working on Sepulveda. This one's a barn find, same type of thing. So it looks like what you'd find in a barn.
Look at that. Even on the fretboard, huh?
Oh yeah. It's pretty cool, even the back of the neck. But it's funny because visually you'd think it'd feel weird, but it's still perfectly flat, and it still has our flat finish on it that gives it that wood feel. Yep. So even though it's a crazy finish, it still feels just like a regular old Tyler. But what happened was, you know what? I'll do the smear story. Yeah. So this is just assembly. This is where we buy parts and store them, and that's part of my job, is making sure that nobody's ever standing around looking at me like, why don't we have any jacks? That's Jim's own mongoose.
Just quickly, Rich, how many people do you have working in the factory?
Total with Jim, 10.
Okay.
I'm gonna flip my camera back around.
You're right, mate.
Come and sit down. All right. Done. All right.
And we're back.
Flip. Okay. Let me get this set. So hopefully that was fun and interesting.
Yeah. So that's thrown your audio out slightly.
Just now?
I noticed it when you flipped the camera before and then came back. Mate, try and log out and log back in and just see if that fixes it.
Okay.
So end conversation, log back in using that link that I sent you.
Like hang up and then just
hang up and come back in, mate, and I'll just talk to the people in the meantime, and I think that should fix it.
Cool.
Okay. How's that, folks? Amazing. I'm just going to take the opportunity to ask you guys, if you have any questions in the chat room, to shoot them in there now. I'll come to your questions. And he's back in there. There he is. If you have any questions, folks, I got you, Rich. I got you. Put them in the chat room now, and I'll come back and I'll sort my way through those. But I'm going to cut back and just see whether that actually fixed. All right. I can see you. I'll see whether that fixed the... I'll need to hear you, mate. Give me a 1, 2.
I'm just kidding. Can you hear me now?
I think that's fixed it. So,
cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely has. Mate, just some of those finishes, like the burning water and the smear. Yeah. Do you get many people that actually don't want that just want a plain old color? And do you guys sort of think... Yawn.
No. Actually, if you go to our Tyler Guitars Facebook page, it's funny. I just was looking through it today. Well, because I was changing my post about your broadcast, and so I scanned down. And I was just like, I haven't looked at this in a little while, and I posted. With all the crazy finishes we do, there's 2 guitars. I said, here's one that's just Lake Placid blue, and it actually ends up being. Wow, because we're so used to the crazy stuff. Yeah. So when a nice Lake Placid blue comes through with gold hardware or, something like that, it's like, or a nice top. Like me, working for Jim for all those years, I got pretty bored of maple tops. But now that we do so many schmear finishes, when I see a nice maple top with the scrape binding or real binding, it's like, yeah. But do you want to hear the story about kind of how the floodgates of weird schmear finishes started?
Nah. Of course we do. Of course we do.
So we were on Sepulveda, and Jim had something happened. Something landed in a finish, and it was a turquoise guitar. So it'd be, wood and sealer, and then silver. It was candy turquoise, so silver and then turquoise. And he said, "Here, I gotta reshoot this," and so sand it down for me. So I'm sanding it down. and I'm sanding it and sanding it, and I'm about halfway done. So it's sort of like wood and silver and turquoise and all weird pattern. And of course, at that point I'd known Landau for a few years, and the Coma guitar, Mike stripped that down himself. Jim gave him a pail full of acetone and let him strip down because if you look for really old pictures of the Coma guitar, it's red. So he just stripped it down. And so I'm looking at it, and I said, "Hey, Jim, look at this. This is something that Landau would like." And Jim goes, "I think you're right. Put it on the corner of your bench. He's coming in tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. Just leave it there. Don't say anything." He comes through the door, looks down, and immediately starts putting his fingers on it. And he's like, "Oh, what is this?" And so him and Jim went in the spray booth and ended up finishing it off with red, purple, and black, I believe. And that, of course, became the Psychedelic Vomit, which was a Landau signature model. They did 100 of those, and that type of thing. So from that, Mike said, "Hey, can you do a Psychedelic Vomit, but do it with something that looks more like Burning Water," because of his band Burning Water. And if you haven't heard Burning Water, check it out. They're, it's hard to find, but they're great bands. So he did Burning Water, and then I was gone for the rest of it, but it all just kind of parlayed into different painters, and Jim and a couple guys that were close with Jim. They started coming up with cool ways to do weird things, and then from there it just became different colors. Like Alien Guano came from one of his customers who named Raj, who many of you know, I'm sure. He wanted something like Burning Water, but he wanted green and purple and something else, and he originally called it just Burning Water with weird colors. And then he came up with, he's like, "Man, the creature on Predator, would spit that green, stuff." So he thought, "I wonder what that guy's poop is like," and figured that Jim wouldn't go for calling it alien shit. So he said, "How about Alien Guano?" And that's where Alien Guano came from. So sometimes customers come up with it, or like John O. We have one called Wino, which is Wine OU, because his last name is OU. He came up with. I'm going to be posting. So if you already aren't on our page, get on our page. I'm going to post his story about how he initially contacted Jim, and he wanted purple and this and that, and it became Wino. And then one of my main painter is a guy named Tucker, and we were working on another different finish that I'm not ready to talk about, but it didn't work out. But we were halfway done, and it wasn't going the way we wanted for that thing. But Jim just told him, "Well, you figure something out." So he finished it up, and it's like this purple and blue schmear, and we're going to call it Tuckerberry schmear,
Cool.
So, yeah. So that's basically it, and it's fun. I had a silver schmear bass, when I had my Tyler 5, but it was long scale, and I suck. So I can't play long scale.
Well, it's very identifiable. Like you see, if you don't catch the headstock at first, you see the body and you go,
"Yeah,
it's Tyler."
Yep.
Absolutely become the signature. Now, other options in the guitars, like you've got all the great finishes and everything, but what's some of the other things that you think you guys have? Actually, that's two questions in one. I'm going to ask the second half first. What do you think sets apart Tyler guitars from other brands?
Is
it the feel? Is it the sound? Is it the individuality?
Yeah, it's a little of all of it. Jim and I often talk about it, and there's so many great builders. Like almost all of us builders are all friends with each other. We all know each other, and everybody's doing great work. I realized that when I was at KRK and I started looking at all the high-end brands and just different, things that people are doing. We just all have our own take on it. But there's something about a Tyler that I've heard it so many times where people are like, "Well, I was put off by the headstock," or "I wasn't sure about this or that." But I always heard, and then when I finally touched one, it was like, "What?" So I don't know. One thing, the neck, we do have variations, but our most popular one is basically what we call the standard 59, which came from Landau had this 59 Strat, and the neck just, because if you think about guitars back in the day when they were shaping guitars, they were busting them out, and somebody was just okay, that feels good. So
Yep.
every one of them was a little different. It wasn't CNC, and then so Mike had this guitar, and we just every time it was in, me and I'm a bass player, like I just said, but I know enough about guitar. I can play enough guitar that I know how it's supposed to feel, and I've set up thousands of guitars, So so we were just, so we measured it and we figured it out, and we started kind of copying that for the psychedelic vomit, the Landau signature model, because he loved this neck, and because man, Coma at one point was like, I think the neck was about the size of my finger,
Really?
back in the day with the Floyd Rose and the
Yeah.
little bitty neck. But this 59 neck just felt great. And then I was telling Jim one day, I was like, we would break the edge, but I'm looking at it going, man, it's just really worn down in between the frets. It's like almost a trough,
Yeah.
And Jim goes, well, let's try breaking it some more. Let's go for it on that rosewood neck. The next day he comes in and he looked at the neck and he's like, you ruined this neck. And he was so mad because, I mean, back then we were, guitar to guitar. We weren't doing that many guitars. Now we're
Yep.
doing 8 a week, but back then sometimes it was 8 every 2 months. It was like, oh. So he's like, well, I have this body, and he was making a shop guitar so we could show people pickups, and let them feel the guitar and, try out guitars at the shop, back when people used to go into shops to try guitars before they started ordering them online. So I put on this black guitar and we beat it up. He used to cut, after I left, he used to do a somewhat beat up thing. He never liked calling it Relic because he just was beating it up. So he called it with bacon. But so it was kind of a bacon guitar, and he burned a cigarette down, and we did lacquer for fun and took it to NAMM, and everybody was like, oh, but everybody that would touch that neck with the frets way rounded over the edge of was, oh my God, this feels amazing. So he started going, you know what? Let's just start breaking it harder. So I think, here's the thing. Jim Tyler, let me give you a little history on him. And again, this is just my recollection and what I know. And man, I would love to get him on camera, but it's just not his bag at
Not his
all.
thing. Some people, yep.
He'd rather sit around and talk about, your racing and what supercar racing, supercar V8 racing over in Australia.
Yep.
He loves that. He wants to come there. So if he ever does, I'll definitely hook him up with you so you can show him around.
Awesome. But I live in a beautiful part of Australia. So, yep.
Yeah. He started in high school messing around with guitars. He was a musician. He's a great guitar player. I'm actually going to cut some clips of a band we did, and he's ripping these solos. And I'm like, Jim, come on, man. I'm just going to do it. He's super embarrassed that I want to do it, but people need to know he can play. And in another time, in another place or whatever, or some certain band, he might have just been playing for a living. But anyway, so he was a mechanic, so he's always really good at building and fixing things and all this. So he started fixing guitars. His first gig was working for Norman's Rare Guitars, and he would work on guitars. And like recently when Eddie Van Halen passed away, Norm posted a picture that was actually taken with Jim's camera, because he's also a professional photographer. He takes amazing photos.
Yep.
If you search James Tyler photography, you can go look at like photos he's taken, and he probably has some for sale even. So anyway, he worked there and then left to start his own thing, and his clientele were always the players. So he was always, and he's a player, so he was always, and this is probably the same story with everybody, but it's just his sensibility of what he liked and what he would, and he would really hear and absorb. Probably how I ended up being as good as I was at Line 6 was from watching him absorb what the player was saying, and then not giving them what they asked for, but giving them what they were asking for, if that makes any sense. Like, and so he had his shop, and then he was a repair guy to everybody, and then he was modding guitars so heavily. That's when he went, wait, I'm breaking these down to a body and a neck with no frets. I should just start getting bodies and necks he got them from Philip Kubicki at one point, and then Tom Anderson, because when Tom left, when Schecter was sold, and went to Texas, I think, or something like that. Tom was making bodies and necks and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, Tom Anderson, I can't say enough about that guy as a human being. I'm not going to get weepy, but he really, if it wasn't for him, there probably wouldn't be a Tyler. And I don't mean in that way that a lot of people will say, oh, well, the early Tylers were just made by Tom Anderson. No, everybody knows that's not the case. He built bodies and necks, and he would make our bodies and necks. And Jim did a lot of the work, and he would go over there, and Tom would let Jim use the machines, and a lot of stuff that we just couldn't do, and then Jim's just slowly built it up to where he had all the same stuff and was able to do it himself. But I think that's what it is Jim being a real player and a tone guy. Like, he's got a really great ear. Like, when I hear him testing each guitar, and doing the balance between the pickups and the chords he plays, there's just something in him that then, and I think it's just, certain people connect with it, because I'm sure that as many guys as are out there that tried a Tyler and went, this is great, but man, I really love my XYZ. This is the one for me.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. So,
absolutely.
So I think it's just, he's taken it to a level that when it goes to that certain guy that wants what he, is in a similar, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's funny because that goes against what we hear about Leo Fender, who didn't play, but just purely went on the feedback of other people and then engineered it. But so I guess Jim sounds like a cross between the two, where he was a player and put what he liked into it and what he thought should be there, but then also listened to people and gave them what they wanted, maybe with his little twist on it.
Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I just read a book about Leo by one of his managers, and for a long time, Leo would just strum an open, all strings wide open, but it wasn't even tuned really.
Yep.
And of course, it was just EAD or whatever. So finally, somebody said, if that's all you're going to do, they basically put it in an open E tuning, so at least it was a chord.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, in terms of the Tyler guitars, is there a lot of options available when you order them online?
Yeah, I mean, we have our standard models, and then and we can get pretty crazy. But we don't get you'd think we'd get more, crazies want to do crazy stuff. So there is stuff where we just say no, but so funny enough, okay, so for years, the Studio Elite HD has been the deal, which is basically the old school Studio Elite, but without the series parallel switches, with just regular humming single coils and a humbucker with the mid boost. But anything that's old will be new again at some point. And so there's been this huge uptick in full-on Studio Elites with the series parallel switches and Seymour Duncan stacks, and we're going to try some other different stuff, and then now everybody wants the old Tyler pickups again. And Jim's just like, I don't like how those sound, and I said, Jim, here's the thing, two things. He goes, well, the thing is here's how he puts it. Jim goes, those pickups sounded great when everybody had racks with 4 compressors in a row, so you got that real jang, jang, guys who are fans, like the Boz Scaggs record, or, any of that stuff that's super clean, like, or Billie Jean, was a highly modified, I think it was an Ibanez Strat that Jim gutted and put in it was 3 Seymour Duncan's classic stacks with series split parallel on each of them, and a lead rhythm circuit and all this stuff. And David Williams told Jim the sound of Billie Jean is all 3 pickups on, so it had like a neck. I think it was maybe. I wish we could find pictures, man. The other day, I just went searching for any kind of information, and he was just. It seems like David Williams was just a guy who just went out there and played guitar, got paid, and went home. He wasn't really that into fame, so there's just not a lot of information. So if anybody, happens to know anybody who knows anybody in that estate or something, because it'd be so great to know what happened to that guitar. But it was 3 classic stacks with the outer 2 in series and the middle pickup in parallel. All 3 on with the middle pickup in parallel. And that was that super clean
Yeah.
Billie Jean
Dun,
thing,
dun, dun, dun. I know the part you mean. I play it
Yeah.
every other week in a
So
group.
what's
And
old is new again.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, awesome.
So anyway, so Jim, so I said, Jim, well, that's the funny thing is racks are coming back, and he goes, really? And I go, Jim, you went to NAM 4 years ago with a rack, and your whole thing for NAM was racks are back. You started it, maybe. And he goes, oh man, so we're working on. I have to come up with a better way. He never liked how his pickups, because if his pickups were full on single coils with in the middle having canceling coils underneath that didn't have a magnet, so it's like a full on humbucker, but you're only hearing the single coil. And so they're mounted to the pick guard, and that can become microphonic. So I'm actually working on coming up with a way to mount them in the body, and then the pick guard goes over the top of them, so we can bring them back. So
Cool.
point is there's a thing that we do, and it would be easy to just go, hey, this is what we do. If you want it, great. If not, I mean, we're back ordered for a couple of years, so it's not like we need the orders. But you know what? People, if it wasn't for the guys buying the guitars, none of us have jobs, So just like you were saying about M13 and my time at Line 6 and Jim listening to session guys, we got to kind of keep your ear to the market. And sometimes it's emotional. Sometimes they want to just see those old school Tyler pickups, which were, Anderson bobbins. We would cut them all out, and Tom would wind them, and then we would do all the rest of the work to them here at the shop. I used to put them together and glue them at an angle and that whole kind of thing. So
Cool.
yeah.
Now you said back ordered a couple of years. So if I was to place an order online, it'd take me a couple of years to get it.
No, well, so what I've been telling people is we have many dealers, well, not a lot, but dealers worldwide and a bunch of guys in the States, and everybody has slots. So they've already said what they want. So now if you call the dealers, if you find a dealer who has a slot open up because somebody didn't want their slot anymore, it takes us about 8 weeks to build a guitar.
Okay.
Top to bottom. So you could get it as fast as 2-3 months. If you happen to go to the dealer that has a slot where I'm sending them a guitar.
Sure.
And I actually, when I came here, one of the things I did is I laid out the entire year, and now I'm going to lay out all next year, so every dealer knows what he's getting when with dates. And we've been staying to it, and it's been pretty amazing, actually.
So all guitars are ordered through dealers, or can you bypass a dealer and just do it online? It's all through dealers.
No. Yep.
Okay. But are all the custom options online for you to view, so you know exactly what it is you want to order?
Or you can hit me on Facebook, or anybody who wants to email info@tylerguitars.com. I'm always answering questions, or you can just hit me on Facebook. If you send me a friend request, I'll I may or may not be able to. I'm getting close to that 5,000 limit, and I'm not the guy who's going to have 2 Facebooks. So if you want to interact, and I guess you can follow me too. I don't know exactly how it works.
Yes, people can still follow.
Always, and I almost look at almost anything that comes into my inbox. I've had really good luck over the years handing out my card with my cell phone, and my emails usually have my cell phone in it, and I've lucked out in life, I guess. People have been really polite with me and not, so as long as it keeps going that way. Yeah. So you can ask me, hey, can I do this? Hey, I saw that guitar. Can I do that with this? Like, for instance, one thing that we just said we put the kibosh on is left-handed headstocks with just period. Because one, Jim just hates how it looks with his logo aesthetically.
Yep.
I think it looks totally badass, but it bothers him. And so he's just like, no. And if it's not a Floyd, he hates what it does to the low E string with that longer,
oh, really?
thing.
Okay, it affects the tone, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's just because you have a tension, so you got a longer string, and it just changes the tension and the feel of the guitar and stuff. People who know the two, I kind of got busted because I did the JTV 89. I did the shred guitar with the Tyler Variacs with the reverse headstock, mainly because I knew eventually I wanted to have a straight headstock as well, and they ended up, after I left, they ended up doing the Floyd Rose version with the regular headstock. But I wanted to do that reverse headstock first to just say, this is not the Strat style or the Gibson style, so.
Excuse me,
Oh,
as I have
bless
a
you.
little sneezing fit over here. Good thing I could turn my
Yeah.
camera off as I do that. Now, my thing with reverse headstock, and I don't own any, I've never owned one, but one thing that pops up for me, I wouldn't get one with a Floyd Rose because anytime I restring a Floyd Rose or I want to tune it, it's either down here. Let me just change the angle so you can see what I'm doing. Down here or up on this side. But, and I'm going to grab a guitar just to show you what I mean. So
Yeah.
just 1 second.
Yeah. Hurry back. We miss you already.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm back. Okay. Ugh. I'll just cut to a shot of me. So, my way of thinking is if I'm playing and my hand's here and I can hear that my top E string is a little flat, I would like to be able to just do that. Not bring my hand over to the top to quickly tweak it. That just makes sense that it'd be there. But I totally get restringing it, putting it down on a bench. No, you want it on this side where you can access it. Floyd Rose, well, it's going to be down this end where you do your tuning, your fine tuning. So, and I love that to be able to be playing and just go, oh, just tweak that. Yep, that's back in. So if does Jim watch these things? Would Jim likely be watch this replay of what we're doing right now? Because if he is, Jim,
never.
Okay.
Never in his whole
life.
Oh,
you can pass it on then. You can pass it on.
Well,
I don't know if that's something you guys have thought about, but yeah, it's so much easier to just do that rather than that.
No, totally. No, that's actually one of the things I do like when I am working on tuning like when I set up all the guitars during the like Alice in Chains dirt sessions and different bands, and a couple of the bands that Karlstrom worked with had reverse headstocks, and that always did hit me like, oh, that's easier.
Yeah, awesome. Now, Richie, you mentioned NAMM.
By the way, real quick fun story about ugly headstocks.
Yeah.
When the Telecaster first came out, everybody knows it had a pan headstock with 3 on a side.
Yep.
Remember that? The original one. Mm-hmm. And Leo wanted a straight string pull over the nut, so he did 6 in line. And obviously Bigsby did the same thing. And when the Bigsby and the Telecaster were hitting, people hated it violently because of all the tuners on one side. They were just like, that looks ridiculous. It's asymmetrical. It's and you just become used to stuff. Like me, I love the Tyler headstock on my bass, the whole deal. And now I'm meeting more and more people that were like, no, I loved it right when I saw it. And one of them was Matt Scannell from Vertical Horizon. And I was like, come on, man. No, at first you didn't like it, and then you got used to it. No, I liked it the first time I saw it. And I said, whoa, okay, tell me about it. And he goes, well, I went to was it the Baked Potato? Somewhere. And I saw Lukather playing Puffy. And I was just like, oh my God, that's amazing. So you see your heroes play something, and then that changes, because we all know half of buying gear is emotional. Uh-huh. The pictures in the Helix aren't for you to go, oh, that's a Marshall. No, you just feel like, it's emotional. Yep. So like plugins could just be gray with faders, but no, they make them with knobs and
exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned NAMM earlier, and obviously there wasn't a NAMM last year for obvious reasons. One that people could attend anyway. Do you guys still have a booth at NAMM? Or the last
Jim
few
had
NAMMs?
one. Jim had one, I think, 2 years. I think, let's see, 2019, 2020, I was there about 20. I think he had one either in 2019 or 2018, and he hates NAMM, but that shouldn't be surprising because most of us do. But he loathes it on so many levels. But I was talking to him, and we don't need to go to NAMM. But I said, you know what, Jim? The thing is, though, that's what the best thing about going to NAMM for us as a company is meeting the people who love your stuff. And then also there's so many thousands of guys that never have a chance to touch a Tyler, and they just want to touch it and go and just make sure before they order it,
Yep.
And then you never know. You meet a dealer or two if we expand at all.
Yep.
Our plan is to keep it constrained though. We want to just kind of keep it like Bugatti, like like just keep it constrained and magical, and just stay right there. There's no world domination plans or anything.
Yeah.
And let's face, Jim would say it as well. He's like, hey, we're making really really nice Strat copies.
Yep.
It's a bolt-on guitar.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, but it's the care and the his blood, sweat, and tears, and his experience, and all the guys that went into what it became. So
Yeah.
there's already a company that's making all the money, and many of my friends work there, and I love them, dearly. So
Cool.
yeah.
Rich, I might start going through some of the questions, mate. So, folks, if you do have any
Yeah.
questions, let me just cut to you so you can see me a bit better. Sometimes I talk too fast and stumble on my words. Start putting them in the comments there, and I'll make my way through them. I'm just going to go back up to the top here. So there's a few shout outs from friends of yours, obviously, which you can go back and have a look at.
Okay.
Let me see. Rick gets the best interviews. Yeah, I do. Just nobody knows about me yet. But good folk like Rich.
You know what?
What's that?
You're doing a great job. I got to tell you, one of the reasons I said yes is obviously we've been friends for a while, friends. But I, before I said yes, I went and checked it out, and I was like, you know what? I dig this guy, and you are. People are going to know who you are. I think if you keep it going, you do great interviews, and I ended up watching a bunch of them just because I was into it.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Get a I listened to one to get a feel for what you do, but then I was just like clicking on them, and so.
Oh, that's awesome, because it's a bit of a secret. I don't have that many subscribers or views, to say the truth, but it's one of those things. It can just sit there for ages until the algorithm picks it up. So I'm good friends with a chap named Louis Shelton. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
Yeah,
I think you mentioned Boz Scaggs earlier. He does a solo on Lowdown, and he plays a guitar solo on Lionel Richie's Hello, and Last Train to Clarksville by the Monkees. That's him at the start.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with his career. But the first attempt I ever did at an interview, and I had a laugh with him. He was over here a couple of days ago. I had no idea, and was just like, I'm just going to turn some cameras on and let's just talk. And I had a 1952 Telecaster here, a genuine one, and sort of that just started the conversation. And I said to him, man, that video sat on 500 views for about a year, and I'm thinking, what the fuck? Like, surely more people would be into that. And then, boom, it just got 100,000 views in a week. So you never know. It's just the right person sharing it. It's almost at 200,000 now. But it just takes time and you got to play the algorithm game. I don't know how to play the algorithm game, but the right person shares it.
Danny Carey's a friend of mine. He plays drums for Tool. And I ran sound for his band Volto for years. And so when I say friend, I use that term carefully. But he's a friend. And he was talking about how he did his camera with just put his phone up doing a solo on one of the tracks and threw it on TikTok, just and so he's like, dude, and it's up to like 37 million views. What the hell? Who's watching?
Wow.
Wow. My son and my son's wife has a TikTok she had 50, 60 friends, and she used to work in the music industry as well. She actually came out here to work with Static X, and now she has this killer job. But she did this thing, and she'll film my son doing funny stuff, and he's kind of animated like me, and she'd get 100 views, 150 views, and cat or whatever. He couldn't find the apple slices in the fridge. And he's looking for him, and she just did just the right thing the way she filmed it. And then he goes, I thought these were freaking pineapple, and it's over 1 million views now. What?
Wow.
So,
Wow.
like you said, suddenly something catches on, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
going to happen for you, man.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, mate. I'm going to pick
Yeah,
your brains for some contacts after this of other people you might
yeah,
think might come on.
anytime.
But back to the questions at hand. Christopher Chen wants to know, Rich, are we going to see a 24 fret Tyler?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to make notes. Not because I really care. No. He had asked me this. I think he asked me this on Facebook, and I forgot to ask Jim, so I'm actually going to write this down. So anything we do, so we back in the day we used to be more, hands-on and pin routers and and just. But now you have CNCs and everything, kind of flows together. So it has to. We need a lot of CNC work to then build the fixtures that go in the CNC, in SolidWorks and stuff. And Jim's longtime friend who worked at like Lockheed and all this stuff used to do all of that for him. Sadly, he passed away. We're all getting older, and we just recently. One of my main cats here is a guy named Andy Hicks who used to be at Exotic, and before that he was at Jackson and Fender. And I'm going to start telling, by the way, guys, on our Facebook page and other places, I'm going to start telling everybody else's story around here too, because people need to know that all these years, it's absolutely Jim's DNA and his blood, sweat, and tears, and he's touched every guitar. But there's so many people that there's no Tyler Guitars without the guys that are working here.
Yeah.
And they all got great stories. But anyway, Andy had a good friend that we just recently are talking to that hopefully we can just use him part-time and start being able to do some stuff like figure out how to do 24 frets. Now, one thing I do know about Jim and 24 frets is he doesn't like where the neck pickup ends up. And again, I told him, I said, yeah, but that guy knows he's trading a little bit of what that tone would be where, it is on a Strat for the ability to get up there and do that thing. And I know that some people would be like, what, it's two more? No, it's
No,
a thing.
it
It's a feel
absolutely
thing.
changes it.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes it's a look thing. It's, it's got a look,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so we do what we do, but at the same time, we're always thinking about, what do people want? I want to bring the basses back. Obviously, my bass is right over there. I got to put frets back into it because it was fretless. But yeah. So
Cool.
hopefully, I just wrote it down. I'm going to ask him.
Okay. Okay. What else we got here? Edmund Wee, 2 questions. Any updates on the consideration for stainless steel frets? That's the first part. I'll let you answer that, and I'll come back to the second part.
Absolutely. I'm actually working on getting the tools because it's hard on tools. But we have one of our artists is a cat named Jay Gore, sweet cat, killer player, and he came in with a guitar and he really wanted stainless steel frets. And Jim's like, and it's like, but they're good friends. They smoke cigars together and all this. So he's like, all right, fine. So Jim put the stainless steel frets in, and he did it himself just to see the amount of work that went into it. And then our guy who does all our fret work, Jim forgot to even tell him that he was working on stainless steel frets, so he just gave it to him, and Fred whipped it out. And then Jim remembered that hey, so how was that working? And he goes, yeah, I noticed it's a little tougher, but not really a problem.
Oh, cool.
And so we looked at it more, and so long story short, and Jim played it, and there's a great video that Warmoth did. I think it was Warmoth where they compared stainless steel frets to regular frets, and I could pick every time. It is a hair brighter, but I think it's a little spankier. But if you're a guy that wears your frets, like you're a top 40 guy, I got a guy who we're gonna refret his neck with stainless steel because he just goes through frets because he's playing 8 hours a night or whatever the heck those guys play. So yeah, so it's not announced. I guess I'm announcing it now. But
exclusive.
But yeah,
exclusive.
I just got to get the tools and get all the we actually, to be able to handle it, we have a full on fret. We've never really buffed frets with a buffing machine, so we got that up, and Jim actually got that up and running, and so we're gonna let the dealers know soon, and because some people, and I thought, man, would everybody want stainless steel frets? And I already talked to many people who are like, no, I like the pushback I feel with nickel.
Yeah.
They tried stainless and they don't like how slippery it is. But then some people love it, so.
Yep. No,
Yep.
that zing thing. I know the video that you talked about that Aaron from Warmouth had put up, and there is that tiny bit of a zing up top. Yeah, but
Yeah.
minuscule.
But you know what? Compared to any number of things in your signal chain that could cause any number of issues, it's minuscule. It's just not even, when people are going, it's way brighter. It's like,
I think
and
maybe
if
it's brighter
and you don't like
acoustically.
it, don't do it.
I think it's brighter as you're playing it. You hear more of a zing as opposed to what the pickups are picking up. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that could be it. Now, I should have warned you before we started that, especially my midday ones that I do, that I drink a hell of a lot of coffee in the morning. I sit here drinking water. So I'm going to ask this next question, and I'm going to just sneak off for 30 seconds. So let's see. The next part of Edwin's question was the story of how Lukather named his gym burst as Puffy, if possible.
Oh, that's too short of a story. You're going to have to go to another question.
Okay.
We don't know.
We don't know.
He won't tell anybody. And I think he alludes to it in his book, which, if you haven't read Lukather's book, read it. And if you can listen to it on Audible, do that, because he reads it and it's awesome.
Cool.
But
cool.
Give me, and the only guitar besides his Ernie Balls in his book is Puffy. That was pretty cool. But I think it's more he wanted to show his mullet, and it happened to be with his Puffy.
Yeah, right. So. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've been working up the balls to ask Steve Lukather on the show, man. He's been like on my radar, and I know people that know him. And I'm going to do it in the next week or so. I'm going to send him an email.
I don't know. I mean, when I run into him, he remembers me, and we kind of chit chat. But that would be one where I'm not a good friend of his.
No, I have his email. I've just been waiting to find that right moment and get to a point where I'm comfortable enough with this that I don't just freeze.
Yeah. He seems to be into it. He does a lot of smaller interviews, I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to reach out to him.
And he's a great. He's such a good storyteller, and back in the day, he was.
Now, there's a question here.
Over the top.
There's a question here that I think you've already answered. How did the idea of round edges on the fretboard came about? And you explained that with Landau's guitar. Frank Peacher wants to know, I hope I pronounced that right, would you consider creating a gallery to show photos of each guitar as it goes out of the shop? They're each so unique, and seeing the history would be cool. It would aid in selection as well. Yeah.
That's actually you want to go to the bathroom?
No, that really strong urge just died off a bit, so I'm going to wait till another question.
Okay. So I've been posting a few on Facebook, but I've definitely thought of that. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we do, like a burning water, that. But I am trying, and usually when we sell something really different, that user almost always blasts all the groups and all that kind of stuff. But so Jim's a professional photographer, so he doesn't want to just and then But I think I've posted, me and people who've done this job before me with the social media have just been just snapping a good picture sitting in the case, and now I've been doing that. So I'll try and do that more, because that's a really good point. There are so many different things, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of builds the lust up a bit as well when people see them and go, "Oh, look how that one turned out."
Now the downside is, this is funny. I've had Jim tell me, like for instance, let me give you a for instance. We did one of our longtime friends who has a bunch of our guitars, a guy named Flint Mavis, and he got a purple Tyler with purple metal flake and an arm contour that was super hard, and Jim never wants to do again. And then we did a purple headstock, and we used the logo that's going to be on the set neck that just says, it's Jim's signature, James Tyler with California, not the signature one you see on like the ice water. And Jim was like, oh gosh, he's going to post pictures and then everybody's going to want arm contours on the, And I go, Jim, you just say no. And he goes, oh, yeah, but it's so hard. So sometimes he'll be like, no, don't post that weird guitar. It's awesome, but everybody's gonna now they're gonna want flame maple on a mongoose, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So it's a double-edged sword, I guess. But I'm gonna definitely try and post more, especially the different ones. You know,
Awesome. Awesome. What are your favorite pickup combinations and why?
man, that's one where when somebody asks Jim the same thing, he just looks at him like, what? you know. So there's I actually want to get more of the history on the different pickups that Jim's come up with. But like now again, like I said, this is just my recollection and my we're a small shop, so half of the stuff that I'm saying right now, me and Jim were just shooting the hay one day, but his favorite combination to say two humbuckers back in the day was a JB in the bridge and a 59 at the neck, Seymour Duncan. And if you guys don't know, Seymour Duncan and Jim Tyler go way back to Norms and after that, and
Cool.
like there's a great picture. Did I post it on ours? I just sent it up to my friend at Seymour Duncan, but there's a great picture of Jeff Beck's Tellys at Seymour's shop, which is just a one room with like a string winder and then a board behind him that has some pickups hanging off of it. But anyway, that was his favorite combination. So I think the Super is kind of JB-ish, and the Retro is kind of 59-ish, and the 5500s are like his favorite sort of single coil, little bit more, But when it comes to trying to figure out how to let somebody know what combination is going to work for them, that's hard. And I'm a big original Star Trek fan, and I like all the series and stuff. And a good friend of mine is the alien on the new one. Maybe we could get him on the cast.
Cool.
I'm talking. He doesn't play guitar, but hey, he's Saru on Discovery. So
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, he's a good. He was the fish guy in that Shape of Water movie and Ape
really?
Sapien and Hellboy and
Yep.
yeah. So anyway, wow, I just tangented and set myself off. So we're talking about pickup combinations and Seymour. So it's so hard to I wish we could add transporters to bring people here, because we have a guitar where we can slide the pickguard out and slide in a different pickguard, so the guitar stays the same and you can try all the different pickups.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to do that myself to get more. I need to have a better handle on that. So sometimes if somebody says, this, that sound on that or this or that, he can kind of maybe glean something that helps him get in the ballpark, but it's so hard because what guitar was actually played on this or that, and how that goes. Like Jimmy Page has made, Stairway to Heaven sold more Les Pauls with a telly than any other song before. It's like
yeah.
it was a telly, and but live, it's so
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just hard. It's all the pickups that we make, Jim has definitely loved. He's discontinued pickups because he didn't like how they sounded. Some of the telly pickups have gone through iterations. So if we make them, Jim stands behind them.
Cool.
We're getting ready to do a round of new audio clips too. So
okay,
now me and Jay Gore actually.
Nice. Well, that whole idea of just sliding pickups in and out, I've got an old Squire over here that I've considered routing out, so I can do that just to do some pickup comparisons and the like.
Yeah.
Now, the man with one of the coolest names on the internet, who's an Uber fan of all the YouTubers, Poo Ninja, wants to know: does Rich prefer a Floyd / floating trem or a fixed bridge?
That's up to the end user. Yeah, okay. I'm a bass player. So one thing I'll tell you this: I love how Floyd looks on a guitar because I love drag racing, and to me it looks like the backside of a Top Fuel dragster.
Cool.
Yeah, but they all have they have functionality, but they also have their own sound. Floyd's sound different than a 2-post Goto type thing, and a fixed bridge also has its sound. And some people like 6 screws, and some people like 2 posts.
Yep.
And like I said, a lot of stuff is religion, and a lot of stuff is even more importantly is emotional.
Yep.
you heard his record and the guy had that, you know, he had that Eric Johnson bridge. Oh, I got to get that bridge.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. And
Yep.
even if it isn't, you get that bridge and you feel better and you play better, and
That's a good way of looking at it, because the way that bridge sounds, he may have set his amp slightly different to compensate for a brightness or something, so you can never really pinpoint what it is. I have a question for you, unless there's any others out there that want to drop some more questions as I ask mine, and then I am going to have that quick little break. Tone wood. Do you believe there is such a thing? Does the sound of the different woods in a body or neck or fretboard affect the tone of the guitar?
Yeah, absolutely. Is it as Jim would say the same, but is it as important as some people make it seem like, oh, it's the most important thing there is, and yeah, there's definitely flavors and combinations and that, but it's funny because every guitar that we do, all different woods, we do mahogany, alder, ash, we do rosewood, ebony, palfaro, and every guitar that I hear Jim, he plays through that same deluxe that we saw earlier, and they all have a chime and a ching regardless of pickups or and all of that. So it's all in the ballpark. I think even more than tone woods, set necks and bolt-ons definitely have a different sound. Set necks are a little spankier. Sorry, I said that backwards. Bolt-ons are a bit spankier and a bit more attack, and set necks are a little more sustained and warm, a little less attack. So I think if it wasn't true that tone woods are important, then there wouldn't be so many different guitars made out of wood. And by now, like when I was at Line 6, one of my engineers, the guy who founded Line 6, Michel Doidic, at one point he came into my office and he goes, "Why are we still making guitars out of wood?" Because he's not a guitar player. Yeah. And he was just like, we could just injection mold these things, and and we all know different companies that have tried it, and it can sound okay, can even sound good. And I don't know if you've seen that video, but there's a great video of a guy building that Strat out of concrete.
I have.
Yeah. And then when he plays it, I was like going,
it sounds like a guitar.
You could make a record, it's like, so yeah, but definitely like mahogany is a little darker, and alder is a little bit more, mid-range, and ash is a little spankier, or, and maple fingerboard is a little bit brighter than a rosewood fingerboard. And, but it's all,
Yeah. I definitely hear that. I walked back in as you were saying about the more of a snap on a maple fretboard, and that's something I do notice myself. And I've spoken to various people who swear by it, that man, all the different woods. And then I've had guys that just shake their head and go, mate, that's just physics. It's just impossible.
Well, oh no, it's definitely possible, because at Line 6, when we were modeling the guitars that ended up being in Variax, I wasn't there for that, obviously. We tweaked the models going into the JTV from what they had, and did some work with them, but we didn't remodel. But I talked enough with our sound design guy about what they did and things that they discovered about wood. One thing that surprised me, and I'm going to say this completely wrong, but I'm going to just wing it just for the fun of the story. So don't write it down or think I know what I'm talking about, because I'm just not the sound design guy. When we say that a wood is warmer, that means that the wood actually is brighter, because what it does is it resonates with the higher frequencies on the string and pulls that out of the string, leaving the warmer overtones.
Yeah.
So really the wood is the opposite of what it's doing to the string through the pickup.
Yeah. That really makes sense. So
yeah, because it's resonating with it and it's sucking the energy out of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I don't know if people have experienced this, but I clued onto this at a very young age when I first started playing guitar, that if you've got two acoustic guitars in the room and they're tuned exactly the same, and you pick just pluck the thick E string, the other one beside it will start resonating in sympathy. So I can see that with the woods. That makes sense. I never
Exactly.
thought of it that way.
Yeah. So in the model, we had to think about all that kind of stuff, and the woods definitely. Well, and of course the bridges and all that kind of stuff. Affected the what is it? Attack, release, ADSR.
Yep.
Attack,
Attack,
release,
decay, sustain, release.
release. Yeah.
Yep.
So it affects all of that. So the kinds of wood affects that in that sense. But I think the flip side of all the science, which you have to do if you're making products and stuff like that, the flip side is, as Jim Tyler says, God plays a Telecaster with a coil cord into I think twin reverb. Don't quote me on that, but it's like you get playing, make music.
Yeah.
The worst equipment has made some of the most brilliant music that we've ever had, but it's in fact, one of my jokes is, can you imagine if Hendrix would have had a Floyd to stay in tune, and he would have had a compensated nut and stainless steel frets and then like noiseless pickups and oxygen free copper and true bypass. Can you imagine the records he could have made? No, he had like a strap.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but that's not saying one is good or bad. It's just at the end of the day, get making music,
Yep.
and then play with toys,
Yep.
So.
Yep. I did just glance over a comment there. We were talking about the 24 fret necks and how moving it slightly, the pickup to accommodate that changes the sound, and it absolutely does. I clicked onto that years ago. Poo Ninja is saying, put a fret on the neck pickup. Could that work?
Hey, you know what? I don't know if that could work, but here's the funny thing is that sounds crazy, but
It'd have
the
to
way
be
we would work
on this side of the pole pieces, wouldn't it, to work?
Yeah.
That's
has somebody tried that actually? Now that I think of it, I feel like maybe I've seen something like that.
I have pressed down on my actual pickup before to get sounds, and it depends on the guitar. Sometimes, surprisingly, it is in tune, and other times you just go, "Ooh, yeah, no, we just killed everybody in the crowd there." That's not such a crazy idea, is it? If it hasn't been done before.
Yeah, but at the same time, if we ever did a 24 fret neck, it would be for the guy who is okay with the sound of a neck pickup on a 24 fret guitar.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal.
Awesome.
It's more just having the ability to do it, and then also just seeing if the amount of work it would take to put it into production. We just got to make sure that enough people would want it, that we don't make a whole fixture. Like, I joke, I have if my buddy Adrian is watching, this is I don't know if you can. Am I holding that? Can you read that?
Yep.
Stanton. So these were going to be wireless DJ headphones, and we yeah, there you go. Yeah, when I was at KRK, we were Stanton and Sherwin Vega. So we were making these headphones, and they never got to make it to the market, before Gibson sold the company, and they sold Stanton to I forget who, and then Sherwin Vega actually is now back with Sherwin Vega Mobile. But anyway, these headphones, I have a pair, and I think my buddy Adrian has a pair. So I joke that I have $40,000 headphones, because all the tooling and all this work and all the man hours, it's probably more than that. I mean, that's a funny round number, but so if we do all of this work for, 3 guys to have 24 frets, I love those 3 guys, but we just can't do it. So we got to make sure, it's something people really want. So.
Do you guys have like a Japanese line as well of guitars with Tyler branded?
We don't, but Kitahara is our Japanese distributor, I should say, and then they distribute to Japan, and we've had like a 30-year relationship with them. I was actually with Daisuke from Kitahara. His name's Daisuke Kitahara. I've known him for 30 something years, and he before I was here, him and Jim worked it out, and so Jim. This is a sole proprietorship, James Tyler Guitars, and then Jim has James Tyler Designs, which is where he does all the Line 6 stuff. And there's a couple brands out there, I forget the names, that he's helped design the guitar.
Okay.
And then he worked it out with Daisuke he just gets paid a royalty for guitars they sell. But it's all to Jim's specs. They get pickups from us. They can't just make guitars, on their own. They have to, show them to Jim and make sure they're approved. They've done some really cool things with the finishes that I don't know if they've run it by Jim or if Jim's okay with them just going for it, but they've come up with some really cool schmears and stuff that, people are like, hey, can I get that? And I'm like, sorry, they do it. We don't know how to do it,
Yeah.
So, and right now like I said, we're so back ordered, we don't have to figure out certain things, but yeah, so it's separate, completely separate. It's Jim, but I mean, when I first saw the guitars, I got to say, I was like, there was only a couple of little things that made me go, okay, but it was so nailed that it was hard to tell,
Wow.
So yeah, they did a great job, and Jim did a good job, teaching them. They came over, spent days here with Jim. So
awesome. Rich, is there anything you want to touch on before I round things up, mate?
Gosh, no, maybe I was thinking what was I thinking? I was thinking that, well, it'll come to me and I'll shoot you a message. But I was thinking we could do this again in 6 months or something, and there was something I was like, yeah, because then we could do. It'll come to me.
Yeah,
but I'd love to do it again. Yeah,
I would love to have you back on as well, mate. You're very easy to talk to with all this stuff.
Yeah,
and I've actually had other guys from companies say, man, can we make this a regular thing when we got new releases? And I'm like, sure. So, love to have you back on. Folks, thanks for watching. Thanks to Rich for coming on. And as we said earlier, I think this is one of the best kept secrets in the world of guitar. It just keeps snowballing with the caliber of guests that we're getting on there. So if you are watching and you appreciate what we're doing here, please share it. That's the way that it gets out there. Share it on your social media. The Chit Chats with Git Cats public group on Facebook. That's where I let people in on what's going on behind the scenes, who I'm lining up before it actually happens. And as I say, I've got sponsors that have given me a whole bunch of stuff to give away. I'll be doing all that through there as well as on the show, but I'm still working out the best way to do all that. So jump on board, spread the word. Rich, you bloody legend, as we say in Australia. You didn't call me dude once. I called you mate a couple of times.
Dude.
Yeah? Oh, dude.
Oh, dude, I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, as I said to you, when I meet American touring bands, and if I say dude, they sort of just look at me and go, man, that sounds weird coming out with your accent. Awesome.
Funny.
Rich, thank you once again. You know what happens, folks? I got the button with the end screen, and when I hit it, it goes like this, and we're gone. So goodbye.